who would have known that, even in 2010, that executives would have needed brand growth? Like personal branding wasn't a thing.
Right.
I actually lay claim to the fact that I think I came up with the term personal brand. All right.
Let's go.
Yeah,
You're the godfather.
I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't really first in the space to speak about it, other people have come before me. But I'm going to say I've invented. I'm going to be Howard Stern and say I invented it. Okay.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's Middle Tennessee, it says here.
Yeah.
Sounds riveting.
Yep.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
That's right. Thank you, Matt Wilson from the Mostly Marketing Podcast. He and I go way back. I may have borrowed a part of his name for this particular podcast, but he was so kind to be the voice of this new reinvented version of what was previously known as the What's Your Problem podcast. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a show where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs, all those types of people about their struggles, their wins, their challenges, how they overcome adversity, or, just the overnight successes that seem to take 5, 10, 20 years. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com. You can go to mostlymiddletennesseebusinesspodcast.com, but let me tell you, it's a little bit of a mouthful. So I just tried to truncate it down to MMTBP.com. I know, not exactly the most friendly marketing way to go, but it's the best I can come up with. If you have better ideas, go to MMTBP.com and contact us and let me know. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com and it'syourshow.co, where we make podcasts like this. So if you're in need of a podcast, you need an intro, maybe you need somebody to take a listen to your podcast and give you some feedback and help you monetize it and all that fun stuff. That's something that we're also getting into as well. Hit us up. That's what we do. Today, this is a kind of a mostly thing. Our guest, Mr. John Mediana. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Let's go.
He and I hail from two similar places, one from being from Las Vegas.
That's right.
And now you're also here in Nashville as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Today, if you're listening to this podcast, we're going to be talking about all things content creation hacks, ways to kind of self-promote and personally brand yourself. That's the space that you're in, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're helping with your company called Executive Brand Growth?
That's correct. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes with this old man brain, I forget things. So you came here. You're kind of relatively new to town, though, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So from Vegas,
yes.
You were there probably think about the time that I was.
Yeah.
I was there from 01 to 05. Mm-hmm. I worked for the CBS Radio, which at the time was Infinity Broadcasting. And we had KLUC, we had KXNT, Mix 94.1, Light 100.5, Extreme Radio.
Yeah.
They were in our group. Was that about the same time where you and I kind of maybe...
Yeah, I think I came a little afterwards. So I was there I was living there kind of like two parts. Right. So I was there from like 2013 to 15, and then from 2018 to 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So way after I left.
Yeah, way after.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've done some big things out there.
Yeah, I would say maybe a little big things here and there.
You kind of, they had the whole moniker of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
That's right.
You did I guess an amendment to that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tell us about that. How did that work out? How did you begin?
Yeah, it all began a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Far, far away. That's right.
But so I've been doing a lot of creative work, for the past 20 years. Born and raised in LA. I went to film school for 6 years. Started in Santa Monica. Went to 4 different campuses, and then built out businesses in my 20s. So I'm 30 turning 37, married with 2 kids.
Nice.
Now, and but in my 20s, I've really just focused on entrepreneurship and content creation. Before it was cool, I like to say I started with designing MySpace pages, for local bands in the music scene, and designed over 200 local bands pages. Over 80% of them went on tours, including like Warped Tour and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is awesome, right? I loved the whole design aspect. I love the storytelling, photography, filmmaking. So I grew up in a really creative space in that sense, and then learned a lot going to film school. But I really learned more just working in the industry. That's why it kind of took me a long time to get through art school, because at the same time I was like, I'm learning so much more, because this is when the digital age was kind of being adopted, right? So like it went from analog to digital, and then YouTube started popping up in 2005 and 6 after the whole MySpace and social media kind of boom. And then you got Facebook coming in, and then all these other social platforms. So it's really exciting and an electric time to be on social media and use that to tell more stories and all those things. So in my 20s, I owned a percentage holder in a few companies. So I learned a lot about branding and marketing as being a CMO for these companies. And it was an exciting time. I made a lot of mistakes. I failed a lot, and just test, learn, adapt, because it was such a new environment. Social media was just like, what can you do? Well, the sky's the limit. You could do whatever. How to get people's attention and bring them through the marketing funnel and all those things. And then I just learned a lot from there. And I got married at 30, and I was like, I'm just gonna hang my hat a little bit and just settle down, so I exited those companies, and I was like, I just want to focus on building a family and kind of doing what I love to do, which was directing and filming and all these things. So I started doing that for freelance for a little bit for these entrepreneurs and YouTube influencers and social media gurus and all these people, and we just like built a really tight, small community really when it comes to the YouTube space and social media. And then I got a call from a company that ran Las Vegas, which is they were a company, an agency that started the campaign "What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas" in 2001.
Right.
And they were looking for adding content creators and more in-house kind of social, like just revamping the Vegas brand and all that stuff. So I moved my family from Long Beach to Vegas in 2018, and then I started working with them as a content creator strategist, and then a whole job was to rebrand the city of Las Vegas to make it more personable, because a lot of times when you look at Vegas, especially on their social media platforms, it was just like, here's a picture of Bellagio, here's a picture of the Paris, and it was just like, man, there's like a disconnect, and like, how do you connect the audience to a really exciting, electrifying, and vibrant city?
Did they not think it was exciting enough as it is?
It's almost like it's easy to sell because it's like the biggest campaign on the planet. It's still getting awards today,
right?
But what we did was create these content ideas and buckets and like series and shows. And one of my favorite campaigns that I was helped to produce was something called Latest in Vegas, and how to do Vegas in a weekend, how to do Vegas on a budget,
like the top 5 things you need to check out when you come, that kind of stuff.
And we were building those things organically. Like my whole thing was like, let's do things organically through the social media platforms, and it outperformed a lot of those third party things, that pay to play kind of things, like advertising and all that stuff. Our organic started to build up, and then 2020 came, and we're like, okay, our job is now to take that old the traditional exciting campaign of what happens in Vegas and that stays in Vegas, and turn that into something that's a nod to it, but it was for a rebrand. So we went ahead and did a rebrand for the whole city, and it became What Happens in Vegas Only Happens in Vegas.
Right.
So that was a successful relaunch of the brand. There was a Super Bowl commercial that we did, and a ton of advertising, and worked with all the celebrities, worked with every single property, turned the whole Las Vegas, the whole city, turned it into this big campaign, all the big billboards and all those stuff. And then something really unexpected happened that year. I don't know if you remember, but
I can't remember. What was the
something about like the whole city just shutting down.
I think it went a little bit beyond the city. Something starts with a D. I don't know. David or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. And then
I choose not to remember.
Actually, I try to just lock that out of my memory.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of knows what really happened.
Yeah, we all know. Just don't go. I went into a deep rabbit hole,
Right.
the YouTube spiral of all the things.
I know the conspiracies.
Yeah. So, I mean, that happened and I was like, it's my time. You know, I've learned so much and I've grown so much. So, decided to leave that agency and really move forward, launched my company. I was like, okay, well, I think it's the perfect time to start another company that really serves like CEOs, executives, the people that I've been working with and building brands for the past 20 years. So at that time where I was like, well, this kind of just seems so natural for me to just build and grow the brands of executives. You know, so let's just call it executive brand growth.
Yeah.
And let's just move forward and work with these high level CEOs. So that's what we did.
And who knew? You know what I mean? Who would have known that even in 2010 that executives would have needed brand growth? Like personal branding wasn't a thing.
Right.
I actually lay claim to the fact that I think I came up with the term personal brand. All right.
Let's go.
You're
the Godfather.
I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't really first in the space to speak about it, other people have come before me. But I'm going to say I've invented. I'm going to be Howard Stern and say I invented it. Okay. Hey, Middle Tennessee electricians, handy women and men, and just those of you needing better commercial LED lighting solutions. Yeah, I know, there's so many of you. I have to tell you, there's another option than just the big orange and blue box stores now. Try j2lighting.com. At j2lighting.com, we have the latest technology in all types of commercial LED lighting, from UFO high base, drawers, area lights, and shoeboxes, right on down to a slimline wall pack that doesn't look like a fist coming off the wall like most other wall packs do. You get what I'm saying, right? Many of our fixtures are wattage and color temperature selectable, which means you have more control over the brightness and appearance in your dark spaces. Check us out at j2lighting.com for a great local source for your commercial LED lighting ideas, even full color light show dreams. Yeah, totally. That's the letter J and number 2 lighting.com. j2lighting.com. Back in my B&I days, early in B&I, it dawned on me that a lot of the people, have you ever been to a B&I chapter?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, a lot. A lot too many.
Right. But I mean, that's personal branding.
That is.
You know, because it goes beyond, I was a marketing guy as well. I came up in radio, did a lot of ad writing and things of that nature. Cut my teeth in audio production, got really proficient at it. Oddly enough, the radio business got me into video and video production and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's weird, you know. Came here and it really took off because we were part of a Jack FM brand. And it just helped our brand because we could just be funny. We could have fun and do all sorts of different fun videos with the staff. It was team building exercises. We just had a ball with it, you know, especially in the early days of YouTube. But a lot of the personal branding thing didn't occur to me until I got into B&I. I started doing my side hustles with video. I wanted to start meeting local business owners. So one of the chapters I was a part of was I discovered that it didn't matter the name of the business, but, you know, I knew Terry was a plumber, and I knew, Emilio was an electrician, and I knew, Kevin was a mortgage guy, and so was a realtor. So it was their name first versus the act that, like, their name was aligned with the category more so than their corporate identity.
That's right.
And I'm like, and I remember, dude, I know I'm kind of joking here, but I remember back in like 2012, 2013 going, it's almost like a personal brand.
Yeah.
And maybe I can get my wife to corroborate that, but but I don't know if I'll get that credit as being an OG of.
Yeah, I'm gonna credit you.
Oh, thank you.
I learned a lot from you.
You've heard it here.
You heard it here first.
But I mean, so Vegas, you went from what happens here stays here.
Yes.
To what happens here only happens
that's
here.
That's right. Yeah.
So does that, I would be, as a devil's advocate, I guess, was there a spot idea that you could say, so what you're saying is, it doesn't stay in Vegas anymore? Do I have something to worry about now?
Right. No, I think the whole concept, which was funny because the 2001 campaign, that was massive success, right? A lot of properties at that time was really trying to mostly entice families, like you had Circus.
Yeah.
And they were trying to go the family route,
And it's funny because they tried that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I want to say late 70s, early 80s, they started moving, well, hey, we want to be the Disneyland in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, guys, no. Because you remember the end of Casino, the movie.
Yeah.
And Robert De Niro's commentary was like, now it's freaking Disneyland.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
This is not what it was.
Right. And there was a derogatory kind of thing. Like now it's like Disneyland, you know, and it was like a negative thing. And that's what some properties wanted because they knew that families had, you know, money and all that stuff bringing.
Right.
They did have that whole Disneyland effect. So a lot of properties weren't on board, but the majority was. But it just seemed very like, you know, almost like adult permission, right? And so a lot of properties didn't want to associate themselves with that. But then when we changed it from that to only, it was almost like you could only get a Vegas experience in Vegas.
Yeah.
So it really made sense where actually 100% of the properties, the hotel properties, was on board this time around. And they're like, we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's worked out. They've been doing that ever since 2020, you said, right?
Oh, ever since. Yeah.
What have been the results since then?
Oh, I mean, if you look at what Vegas is doing now and how much it's thrived, the whole city has come alive. I think there's a few stages of the growth, just even the past short years, you know, even getting the Golden Knights and then whole city, the Raiders just came and all those things like the Madison, the circle, the sphere is now there. I think a lot of more entrepreneurs and business owners that are, you know, in the multi-millions and billions have moved to Vegas for the thriving city, and the entrepreneurship space has blown up. So it's become a really vibrant, rich, entrepreneurial space of experimenting and exploring kind of ideation and creativity in a sense. And this has just happened recently in these past 5 years, I believe. And just the city's kind of come together. You know, we worked on a campaign, Vegas Strong, during the October 1 event. The unfortunate thing that happened at, you know,
the root was at the Harvest Festival.
Yeah. And so I think that kind of sparked you know, when things happen, tragedy happens, you know, even back when 9/11 happened, like people come together through an unfortunate time, but that strengthens the community and something becomes more in that spirit of like coming together and building and rebuilding and all those things. So I think that kind of had, I could pinpoint, you know, that moment starting to bring awareness back to Vegas and attracted entrepreneurship and attracted things that have been already there, you know, but I think it amplified it or accelerated the process of Vegas becoming really a dynamic kind of beacon and a place, a hub of creative growth and entrepreneurship, and it attracted all these attention from, you know, the Raiders and you know, just the hockey, like even having their own leagues and sports Vegas is now a city. Yeah. You know, it's not just a place where you could gamble and kind of like blow your money over the weekend. It's actually becoming a community and a place to build that community. And,
believe it or not, when I was there, I mean, after September 11th, there was 3 months that September 11th happened after we had moved there. So we moved there in June of 2001. Wow. Our first big adventure, moving from Connecticut to Vegas, never having been there. Yeah. Never having been west of the Mississippi at that point. So we drove out there just taking a chance and a whim. I met my future boss once in New York City. That's how I won him over. I actually recreated my demo that got me the job. I brought a portable CD player and a pair of headphones.
What's that?
I know. A CD Walkman. Look it up. It's probably worth a lot more money now. So I brought that with me to New York City when they were there for a talk radio convention. Yeah. I said, hey, he bought me lunch. I said, pop these on, take a look. What's this? I said, here's another part of what I can do for you. Yeah. And that's what kind of won him. He hired me. So we ended up moving to Vegas. And even after that whole experience with 2001 9/11, that city was astounding. Yeah. Because I think there were so many New Yorkers there that had such a close connection to the city. Yeah. The response from that city was just astounding. I think it even made the cover of Time magazine, one of the rallies that we had out there. Somebody was on like a national publication because of the the response we had.
I mean,
everybody thought we were next.
Yeah.
Like all the other cities. Like Chicago thought like a plane was heading out there. Everyone thought that the Hoover Dam was next. And like someone was going to, these terrorists were going to fly a plane into onto the Strip. And I'm going, guys, you know what would happen to the rest of the country if we got hit? The rest of the country would be like, oh, man, that's too bad. What were you saying? Nobody cares if we got hit. I said, but Vegas was very strong. There was a tremendous sense of community at that point.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah.
I never got that impression that Vegas didn't feel like a city at that point. It was, I guess it's a lot more vibrant now.
Yeah. I think on the global scale,
Oh, yeah.
To the ones that have been locals or been in proximity with Vegas, even the surrounding traveling cities like California, Arizona, Vegas has always been a community, in a city, on the map. I think just recently, when I say recently, I mean like the past 20 years recently, it's been on a global scale of like, when people think of coming to the US from an international standpoint, it's New York and it's Vegas, you know? And so like a lot of people are
Nashville now too.
Nashville is becoming that as well, a travel destination from international. Like when I was in the agency, we'd see the numbers from the international travel, and Vegas was one of the top 5 international travel hubs. Just the airport, the international airport that we got, the ease of the city and how it flew together. I think also we did a study back in I think it was 2018 where they had there was a Super Bowl going on. I think it was not in Vegas, but it was somewhere else.
Right.
And I think the Super Bowl held like 100. They could accommodate as a city hospitality wise a little over 100,000 people. And in Vegas alone, we had a watch party and we had like over 200,000 people.
Oh, wow.
that we brought. And it was a watch party for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So we accommodated over 200,000 people, and it just made sense. It's like, well, Vegas is funny enough because it kind of like was a reverse of how cities are designed.
Yeah.
So Vegas became a hospitality city first,
major centric,
right? Yeah. And then it became sports and like community and residents and all that stuff, where you have all these other major cities that was like kind of reversed. Like people came and then they started building business and e-commerce and all those things, commerce and whatnot, and then they already had their established sports and stuff like that. So Vegas kind of did a reverse on that. Like they built it so that it could hold people and have a travel.
It was a vacation destination. It was a gambler's paradise.
That's right,
It sprung up out of the 40s and 50s because the Hoover Dam was what created the community.
Correct.
And then, the Italian mafia got a hold of it.
I mean, Godfather. Let's go, man.
Yeah, that's what started the whole thing. They were the catalyst. They saw, the value of what was going on out there. It was the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Literally.
No rules, man.
Right.
No rules.
And they went nuts. They built that town.
Yeah.
And it was, if anything, they showed you the relational proper way to do things. Correct, and when you got out of line, there was a consequence. And it was funny, when I was there in 01 to 05, it was a weekly occurrence because the expansion was so much.
Yeah.
Like what we're experiencing here, every time we move, my wife and I, it's like a phenomenon that follows us, apparently. So we moved to Vegas. We bought our first house, but it was in a part of town that was on the edge of town.
Yeah.
Now it's in the midst of everything, You remember like Elkhorn, like northern part of town. The 95 would go off to the northwest.
Summerlin.
Yeah, you'd go out to Indian Springs and Mount Charleston. Mount Charleston has got like communities on the turnoff now.
Yeah. Dude, absolutely. That's where our office was. It was right next to Red Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, way north of Red Rock.
North, yeah.
But that was a 15-mile desolate run when we were there.
Yeah.
At the other side of the 215. West of that, it's all built up now. Yeah. That was nothing but desert when I was there.
Man. Yeah, the city has grown significantly. They're even talking about increasing expanding the strip all the way out to the M.
Down south?
Yeah, down south.
Really?
And they really they've already got properties and land and all kinds of things. The development has been just a massive boom.
Huge.
Like, it's just been huge.
But what I was saying before, every other week or so, you'd hear about them coming across a body.
Yeah. Oh no! Hey, don't get it twisted. There is just
a lot of holes in the desert.
A lot of things that they find out there. And you can't operate at that kind of level, without having some people just silence, you know.
There was a steakhouse, almost like a cowboy steakhouse.
Yeah.
That was in the northern part of town. And a friend of ours at the time took us out there. And it was a bit of a drive. And it was out in the middle of nowhere.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was one of those, I'm like, how long is this place? It's been here for probably 25, 30. Really? Who the heck 25, 35 years ago would have thought, let's build a cowboy steakhouse where it's all rustic, where it's all wood fired, and it was really good.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things that it took a while to get there. Yeah. Now it's just surrounded by development.
Yeah.
So my wife worked as a massage therapist. She got her formal training out there, and she worked at first for the Hilton before now it's something else. Back then it was the Las Vegas Hilton. Yeah. Then she got a job with the Luxor, and then she ended up at the Venetian.
Okay.
And I would take her into work on the weekends because even though it was 5 miles away, it would take an hour to get there.
Yeah.
So I'll just drive you in and pick you up because she would have to park like all the way. Yeah. You know, it would take her 20 minutes just to, I'll just drop you out the front door. But her clients that she would get. So where do you guys live? Do you guys live in the hotels? And I'm like, dude, did you not see the communities that you flew over when you flew into McCarran?
It's so funny. Like when I first moved to Vegas, I had a lot of curious friends who are like, so where do you like work and what hotel do you work in? I'm like,
right.
What are you talking about? Where do you guys live? Like what suite do you live in? I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, you know, it's a community, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's a big community.
Yeah. There's like huge suburbs. Like you can't, if you just step outside of the strip, it's kind of like you're putting yourself in like, you can't even tell that you're in Vegas.
Right.
You know what I mean? It feels like a normal suburb community.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, even the radio station where I worked, we were about 6 miles from the strip. So it was pretty cool, especially as the year would progress and things would get darker. I'd come out to my car, and where I came out faced the strip. We were on the west side of town. And it's like the first time you see that and everything's lit up, I'm like, that's a pretty cool thing, man. I get to work at a pretty cool place. Look at this view.
Man,
my last radio station didn't have a view like this.
When we lived there, man, I kind of couldn't. It was like a surreal kind of experience of like, this place is electrifying. Mm-hmm. And it's weird that I live here now.
Right.
And like, because this is the most famous city in the world.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm just like, I look outside, I'm like, especially during like 4th of July and stuff, you just see all the properties and the fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, I remember New Year's, 4th of July. Like we're standing in the middle, like, because it's the desert. So it's just like, you know, you're in the middle of the fireworks. You can see it all.
Yeah.
You're just like,
you can't miss them.
No, you cannot. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I loved going out I love the desolation. I could drive 15 minutes in one direction and be in the middle of nowhere and hear just utter silence. And the sky would just swallow you.
Yeah.
Because it was so big out there.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. I would go out, like my wife would be working. I would go out and just go out to the desert somewhere.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah, I used to go out to the desert just to go shooting.
Yeah, machine guns.
Yeah, like literally, like it's just the best feeling. It's almost like wow, like what can get better than this?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
but I mean, they still have the Flood channel out there. There's actually a television local channel devoted to the Flood channels around Vegas.
I never heard of that.
This is my mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my apartment. I would have that on the background. I was utterly fascinated. Like, hey, this is what we did this week. We built this channel up to, Red Rock, and, it's going to channel the floodwaters. And I'm like, floodwaters, this is the first time we're still in our apartment. And I'd never known about flash flooding.
Oh, yeah. And that's a real thing.
Oh, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
You take it seriously out there. So that leads you to Nashville. What popped up on Nashville on your radar? How'd that happen?
So I mean, Nashville was like a second home for me. Just been doing film and photography for a long time. I would fly out here, work with brands like Capitol Records and stuff, direct a lot of music videos out here. So it was very natural. But my wife, like when we were in Vegas, we were having our second kid. And we were like, well, there's no real family around here. There's nothing really keeping us here anymore because, I left the agency and started this. And we were like, okay, we're having our second kid. We kind of need more babysitters, So my wife's family, they all lived out here. My sister-in-law, my brother-in-law lived in the peninsula in Hendersonville. My in-laws lived in Gallatin. My sister-in-law was in Nashville. So it was just like kind of made sense. It's like, you know what? I think it's time to like kind of uproot and go to Nashville.
Right.
And my wife was like, yeah, I think so, So we made the move 2.5 years ago, and it's probably the best move of my whole entire life, just because, man, it's just different out here, you know.
We moved here before it was cool.
Yeah, there you go. So I think we followed the trend we followed your trend. As you paved the way, we kind of just went right. with the way. So
when people ask you where you're from, what do you say? California or Vegas?
I say I live here now. So
I'm not telling you.
I'm like, I kind of feel it out, and I'm like, all right, I always say Vegas. So I'm just like, I came from Vegas,
right?
And then
you and I share that commonality.
Yeah,
me just in 05.
That's it. And I was like, I come from Vegas, and then once it's safe, I say I was born and raised in LA. My wife's from San Diego.
but I mean, the same kind of entrepreneurial spirit that you saw out there, and that kind of culture that had been burgeoning and bubbling up.
Yeah.
It's been like that here for at least 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
It's really rich here.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazingly so.
Yeah. I was surprised,
I was surprised too.
Yeah. And I was kind of really grateful as, we moved and getting to know the community, and I don't like, whenever I move or transition somewhere, I do something called like a listening tour, just like, can I just listen and hear the community, like just get in proximity with people and you really adapt to the lifestyle here, because I'm not here to bring my, kind of junk or whatever. I really care about the community, and I really want to know the people and all those things. And I think that approach is the most organic and natural approach, and like really kind of like figure out like, okay, well, how can I get involved in this community? Like with my skills and the things that I've learned over time and the experience and the things that God's brought in my life, like how could I partake and kind of, participate in the community, and also vice versa. Like I gained so much from it too. So I'm learning as well. So like this listening tour these past couple of years has been really huge, just to kind of integrate into the society and integrate to the communities and learn about what they're all about,
Right.
So it's been helpful.
I would imagine. I mean, who are some of the first people? You've already had family out here that kind of planted the roots, and, it was a little bit of an easier transition, I would imagine, for you. Mm-hmm. But some of the first people that made impressions on you, who were they?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to give a shout out to my guys from B3 in Hendersonville, man, like Eric Thornton and Dennis, and like just participating in local communities, it has been huge. For me to just kind of connected as a newbie, like just finding those people. I just remember meeting them and just connecting with them instantly, and they just been so great at being like, kind of like, hey, like I need to introduce you to these people. I need to introduce these people, like, and they made massive introductions. And the first thing that I love to do is like join at chambers or kind of join any community kind of things that are happening, like participate in the events that happen in the city and surrounding cities. So that was a big, huge, I think game changer for me, is to get plugged into the right people and the communities that people are already leading and kind of already building and kind of really getting to know them in a big way.
Did you join like the Hendersonville chamber? Or was it Nashville chamber?
Yeah. So I first joined the Gallatin chamber and then build proximity with Hendersonville. And then,
did you meet Jason Duncan in there?
Yeah. The real Jason Duncan, baby. Shout out Jason Duncan.
That's his stomping grounds up there.
That's right.
He's been on this podcast a couple of times. Jason, I mean, you could reciprocate and have me on yours, for crying out loud. I mean, I've had you on twice. Just saying.
There you go. Shout out. Yeah.
I shame people on this podcast.
Let's go. Yeah, no shame at all. And then getting involved in the city of Nashville, my first office was at the Entrepreneur Center, and just getting in proximity with some, like, just people.
That's a good place.
Yeah.
It's so great. Far away from me, though. I can't.
I know,
because they have a podcast.
Room.
Yeah, not a podcast room, but Clark Buckner up there does a great job with their podcast.
Nashville
efforts.
Pod. Yeah.
Nash Pod.
Yeah, Nash Pod. Yeah.
He does an amazing job.
Yeah, I met all them. A friend of mine actually met, his name's Angus Nelson. He was the one that helped start it.
Yeah.
Right. And then, and then Clark and all of them, I think that they're phenomenal. I met a lot of people through that community, and I met my friend Dr. Justin Mosley through that, and Jim,
he's been on this podcast.
Yeah, so like it's just, I think it's just a small town.
Again, Justin, we could reciprocate. Come on. I would love to. I love to talk about mindset.
There you
go. You could reach out. I'm from the Northeast, so I deploy a lot of Catholic guilt. So that's what I do.
That's hilarious. Yeah, and then our friend Jim Morris.
Jim Morris, yeah. He's from Boston. He's a Bostonian.
Yeah.
And he's been on the podcast. He said he's going to get me on his podcast at some point. Yep. You know, it's funny. Every time I keep on forgetting to do this, but I will always put it out there. I will always ask. I have premonitions about who is going to be on this podcast. And I think Dennis Quaid is going to be on and sitting in that seat at some point. He lives here.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid. Funny enough, I got a story about him.
Really?
So one of our clients, you ever watched the movie The Rookie?
Obviously. Yes, great movie.
Dennis Quaid.
Unbelievable movie.
Phenomenal. He did a phenomenal job. Mm-hmm. So the real, it's funny because when I met Jim Morris, I was like, oh, do you know The Rookie? Like Jim Morris?
Yeah.
And he's like, I wanted to be him, right? Yeah. Like I wanted to go into even college and play baseball and stuff. But one of our clients and friends, really close friends, is Jim the Rookie Morris.
Really?
Yeah, and he calls our grandkids his grandkids and stuff like that. And but he's good friends with Dennis Quaid,
Well,
and so I'm like, hey, there's always, if you know the rule of 6 degrees apart.
I know.
It could happen.
2 degrees away, buddy.
That's it. Yeah. So we're 2 degrees. So that's going to happen.
Let's make it happen. I just have for some reason, when we moved here, I had a premonition. I was telling my wife about it last night. I said, remember when we moved into our house, I said, I just feel like we're going to have people singing in our living room of some sort. And it was way before even I had video products to put out there.
Yeah.
That came in like 07, 08 that I started doing a lot more, I guess you would say, corporate content creation through a product at the time I had called VidSigs, and they were video signatures. And they lived in the email signature of your email. And it was a little brief introduction. Back then they were like 3 minutes long, because no one talked about brevity. And, I would make them very humanizing. Yeah. They were unscripted, unposed. A lot of the stuff that I do now, I hate scripts. I hate anything that's like, I like free-flowing stuff, authentic conversations.
Feels forced.
Right.
With the scripts, yeah.
So that's what I did with these videos, and I put them out there as a product and blah, blah, blah. So I had a couple of high-profile people. I met my good buddy, Rich Redmond, who plays with Jason Aldean. He's been his drummer since 97 or 99, I'd say. I met him that way. I met a couple other people that way. And because of those circles, I get a call one day from Tim Rushlow. So he's the singer from Little Texas. Yeah. And when he had a self-named band called Rushlow, he says, look, I've got a project called The Frontmen with Larry Stewart from Restless Heart and Richie McDonald from Lone Star. I'm like, really? Cool, man. That's awesome. Like, good to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. Rich actually did play with Tim for a season. He and actually the main core of the Aldean band were in Rushlow once upon a time. And he says, we want to do one of your videos similar to what you did for Reggie Ham and Rich and all those guys. I said, okay, is it all three of you? He goes, yeah. So where do you what studio you shoot in? I said, funny you should say that. It's right in my front living room of my house.
Let's go.
Yeah. And I put like literally bed sheets up, and I would fire lights at them with Home Depot work lights.
Hey.
And, risk setting my house on fire.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, whatever works. If you can do that, what we've seen you do.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. How much? So we talked price and everything and set a date. I said, Court, let's clean the house up. If you're into making some hors d'oeuvres, she's an amazing cook.
Yeah.
So she came up with like little pizzas and stuff like that, for them to, we made it an experience.
Yeah,
and these three guys show up, and it's like Richie McDonald, the guy who sang Amazed, the wedding song of wedding songs.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the voice. It was such a great, all three of them were just terrific.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at and he's got his keyboard, they got their guitars, and he's singing the song in our living room.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. You can see it. And I'm like, looking at Courtney, my wife, going, can you freaking believe this?
Right.
This is surreal.
Yeah.
Here he is. Like, I've seen this guy in music videos on CMT.
Yeah. And here he is in my living room.
He's in my living room. He's
working together.
He's asking you about which tie to wear.
Yeah.
And Larry's over there complimenting you on your pizzas. I'm like, this is unreal.
Yeah.
Totally garming on them.
Yeah.
Not really, but now I am. Looking back on it, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
But it came to fruition.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, it may not happen, Dennis Quaid, but I always try and mention it.
Hey, I believe it will happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's try and, reach out to your friend Jim Morris, the other Jim Morris.
The other one. Yeah.
We got the real Jim Morris. Should that guy, the original character, call himself the other Jim Morris at this point? Or
we're going to have to rebrand him, man. The other Jim Morris.
So moving into so you just started doing the executive brand growth. Was that in Vegas or here in Nashville?
Started in Vegas.
In Vegas.
Yeah.
You just brought it here.
Yeah.
So how's that been going since because you're starting to get more prominent here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Building more partnerships.
Yeah. Building more relationships. We have a relationships first approach, especially because when we deal with personal brands, we are the personal brand. And I think we lean in with that, building relationships is so key and important. So yeah, it's been significant. Absolutely significant, and I think people are catching on to this idea of like, oh, I need to be the brand. And I'm like, no, you are the brand.
Right.
People know, like, and trust you.
That's what Brad Lee said.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah.
You are the brand.
You are the brand.
Be the content.
That's right. Be the content. Yeah.
And that's actually an origination of, I've first heard that from Gary Vaynerchuk. Mm-hmm. Document over create.
That's right. Yeah.
That's kind of what podcasts do.
Absolutely. I love Gary. I mean, we've worked with him since 2016.
Really?
He's been phenomenal. And he's been an influence because one of the first books that I took serious when it came to entrepreneurship was his book called Crush It, and that really being in the culture I was raised in, I'm Filipino. So being an Asian home, growing up in an Asian home, it was really about academics and, you're going to become a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, some government job that's really secure. Yeah. And when I read that book, growing up, I was just like, wait, I could do this. I could do entrepreneurship. I should do this.
Right.
And it really challenged me and pushed me really in the direction that I am now. So I attribute a lot of, my entrepreneurship things and mindset for Gary Vaynerchuk. And it was a really full circle moment when we started working together, and
how did you end up meeting him? Because he was pretty prominent by then.
Yeah. So I met him in 2016. We started doing, so I told you about doing YouTube channels and working with a lot of influencers, friends of mine.
You were responsible for glittery MySpace pages once upon a time.
I was, you got the little cursor and it's like follows and stuff like that. But
we can blame you for that.
that led into these relationship first kind of opportunities. I had friends in Vegas when I was living there. The first round of Vegas, my friend Sean Cannell and Benji Travis, we all got together and they were going heavy on YouTube and we launched a channel called Video Influencers at the time, and they were already influencers. Benji's wife has been the OG makeup artist on YouTube, since 2006.
Right.
So they've already accumulated millions of views, and they knew how to monetize really their personal brand. So I learned a lot from them. Kudos to them. But when I made really good friends with them, and we were just doing life together, just doing YouTube videos and stuff, and it caught word, where we would interview influential people and they would share their strategies and tactics to grow on social media. Mm-hmm. So we were interviewing Lewis Howes and all these folks, and then got a hold of Gary Vaynerchuk. They heard about what we were doing on the channel. We are actually top channels on Forbes when it came to business YouTube channels, video influencers. Yeah. So Gary reached out to our team and was like, hey, I want y'all to come out to New York and let's do an episode. He was just launching Jab 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 Right Hook,
the second book
at that time, and so we did a interview with him, and I flew out there with my friend Benji to do a Video Influencers kind of a YouTube video for the channel. And then we just clicked. I think my most favorite compliment that Gary's ever said, this is like the best compliment ever, because at that time D-Rock was his video creator.
His guy.
His guy. He's still his guy, But
D-Rock moved on, I think.
He did move on, yeah. He's grown. And me and D-Rock, like, we're cool too. And he's such a great dude. I remember when I showed up, I had like 5 cameras and like 2 recorders, like, cause I was what we call a shredder, right? A shooter editor. I was running gun.
Never heard it put that way.
Yeah. Like I was, yeah. So I think we coined that term too. Like you got to find yourself a shredder, someone that shoots and edits on the go, because those are really high level people where they know how to shoot, to edit, and for social and how to make it really pop out and stuff like that. So I was there with like 5 different cameras. I was there with a few different recording things. And then Gary looks at me, he's like, is this all did you bring all this? And I was like, yeah, man, like I got this angle for this angle. I got this for this. I got a backup recorder for this. I got iPhone recording for the, cause I always think about how to edit it really quickly and fast. And if something like, if a battery died or something like that, I know like, all right, well, this is the backup just in case, you know? So he was just like, I'm impressed. Like, D-Rock, take notes, man. You need more cameras. That was like my most favorite, you know, kind of like, wow, like, dude, I got a really solid compliment.
You've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, you know, and when you've been doing it a long time, you run into things that you failed at to add to your new tool belt of like, this is how we're going to prevent this from happening if this ever happens. Like if a battery dies out or a camera goes bad or a card is corrupted, we got backup, you know? So that video launched and I think it's one of the top 5 videos on their YouTube channel with over 1 million views.
Nice.
Something like that. And then Gary was just so impressed that he's like, hey, can I just reach out anytime we're in Vegas? You know, I would love to, and I don't have D-Rock with me. I'd love to work with you. So I worked closely with Gary and his team at VaynerMedia, and I was working with some clients with him at Sasha Group, his other company, and all that stuff too. So it's just a very great, healthy, awesome relationship, and it was really cool.
I think we're going to be hearing from Gary as long as we're alive.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, his approach really resonated with me. I discovered him by accident going to a Facebook, when Facebook was putting out business profiles and starting to build that up in 2015 or so. They had tours going around the country and had like a convention at Marathon Music Works. Yeah. So I went to the convention for a company I was working with at the time, just to kind of, you know, glean and learn and all that stuff. And they had a round table, a panel discussion, more like it. And people were asking, where do you derive your marketing principles and ideas from? Yeah. And as one guy says, you know, I listened to Gary Vayner. I just wrote his name down. Yeah. Got back to the office, Googled him. First video was like out of the box. I was like, oh, I'm hooked. Yep. I love everything you're saying. Yep. You know, he was from my part of the country. I completely got what he was saying. I was a big Cardone guy too. Yeah, Grant. Yep. But it's funny. They are polar opposites. They are. In terms of how they approach their content. Yep. You know, Cardone's very transactional, he's a relational guy. Sure. I've met him in person, been down to his place. He's a great guy. But his approach is like, you know, $4.99 now, it's only $49, you know, that kind of stuff. Yep. Whereas Vaynerchuk is just,
you don't even know what he sells. Like he doesn't even have a course. Yeah.
Gary just gives it away. He just gives it. And that's his legacy. Yeah. You know, and that's why I say we're going to hear from him for a long, long time, because it takes time to build a legacy like that. And this is kind of like leading into the next part of the conversation we're going to have. What's happening with this space? Because we're seeing a lot that's going on. Yeah. There's a bubble of sorts with so many people wanting to be influencers. If you've read any of the stuff that I put on LinkedIn lately, I'm calling, you know, in so many ways, a lot of different people out with their way they go about doing things. Like, guys, you got to go about with the relational aspect. Yeah. These guys like Andy Elliott out there that are doing these, he's the Howard Stern of, he's a shock jock, essentially. Yeah. I mean, I think that trends, that bro sales mentality is going to die out. You think so? Well, I think I follow trends, you know. Yeah. I mean, being in it since 2003 with MySpace, I've had the privilege to watch the different, you know, progressions and trends flow in and out, you know. And right now, I mean, like, just recently, Alex Hormozi, you know, him breaking through and inspiring others to create
content, and then, you know, kind of the start of the bro sales. I mean, I love Alex. He's a great, you know, influential person, and he's real. He's done the work, you know. Guys like Andy Elliott, like Shock Factor. What do you do after your stuff gets old? Because people do have content blindness, right? What else is there? What's the depth?
Like immune to it,
right? So they're immune to it. They don't like, you know, you had like the Andrew Tates of the world and all that stuff. Even his kind of trend is dying out. You know what I mean? This alpha male approach and like all this stuff. It hit at the right time, and then you know. So you look at the trends, and you're like, all right, who's sustainable? That's why Gary V's model, when it comes to legacy building, is sustainable, because, you know, and the Patrick Bet-Davids of the world is sustainable.
I like him too.
You know, he's a great guy. You know, and that's sustainable in social because they're practitioners and they're relationship first, and they're giving value first. I mean, PBD. I mean, valuetainment. That's his whole brand.
And it's like, even, you know, I would love to. I reached out to Brad the other day. I said, hey, episode 200's coming up. Let's make it a centennial thing. Every 100th episode, I'd love to have you on. I've yet to hear back from him, Brad. But, you know, he's aligning himself with a lot of these freaking clowns.
Yeah.
I'm like, Brad, this is not you. I would tell him, you can do better than this. You are better than this. Yeah. I have a pretty good idea of who he is. Yeah. He's got a little bit of the bro factor going on for him, but he is truly who he is. You see him on
he's a relationship guy.
He's a relationship guy through and through.
Yeah.
But he's aligning himself with these ass clowns. Like, dude, stop. Yep. You're better than this.
Yeah.
I think you're more in line with a Vaynerchuk than anybody out there. You're more in line with a Milet, a Pete, you know, Patrick Bet-David. Yeah. You know, Cardone is Cardone, believe it or not, I think he's fallen under the radar for a season.
It happens when, you know, the shock value kind of wears off.
But Cardone wasn't shocking.
No.
Cardone is truly, this is what I think. I'm in my 60s and I'm basically building a legacy and my wealth that I should have been building from my 30s and 40s.
That's his story, right? Yeah. So I think like he's got stripes. He will always be, you know, he will always have an audience because people that are reaching that age are also in the same, like, how did you do it? Yeah. When did this come to realization? I think a lot of people are recognizing now, just more recently, the power of the personal brand. Yeah. Because things have shifted. Yeah. You know, when it comes to, I'm building a business, you know, and I got to like get money, and they're thinking about the transaction so much, and the idea is like, well, what's beyond that? Like, what is underneath that? We would never. Do you think Tesla would be Tesla without the Elon?
Right. Or, you know, VaynerMedia that exists without Vaynerchuk. With Gary.
These things would not exist. I mean, like, just running the business, that's the practitioner of it. And then, like, you get to just build something and tell people what you did. That's it. And when it comes to legacy, the reason why PBD and all these guys are great, Gary Vaynerchuk, because they have a sense of legacy, and they have a sense of like, this is who I am. And they have kids that are growing up and be like, you want to know what daddy was like outside of being your dad? Yeah. Here's a whole thousands of videos online. Just here's the playlist.
Not just his kids, his grandkids.
His grandkids. And I remember PBD said one time that just hit me and resonated, and which is why, honestly, I do what I do and help these executives build out. You know, it's just not like, well, I need sales. I'm like, no. You don't. Yes, sales should be the byproduct of you being as authentic and as relational as possible. Sales is the byproduct. Wealth is a reward for you doing the best, delivering the value. And what I learned from PBD, what he said was, if I had 100 hours of my great grandpa, how much value is that to me?
Because you're going to take it to heart more so than anything. Because he's family.
Exactly.
You know, my business partner is now sunken his teeth into the notion of being more public. Because I think, you know, Amanda Banks.
Yep. She's so great. Yep.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She LinkedIn. You ever have the motion? I call it the, I don't know, maybe it's cognitive bias. The notion of when you tell your wife that she's beautiful, but it doesn't matter until she gets hit on at the grocery store. Ooh, my God, you know, someone thought I was beautiful.
Got it.
Right. You know? So with John, my business partner, I've been telling him for years, dude, let me just put a camera on you. Yeah. When you go off on these tears, he's like, I'm not, okay. So finally he gets in front of her, and she just basically parrots everything I said. But somehow she broke through.
Of course.
And now he's like, okay.
It's like a married couple, you know, like it's kind of like,
which is fine. I said, as long as you're on the journey, okay, as long as you're getting stuff out here. So, because buddy, people need to hear your thoughts.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not just because they're your thoughts, but because they're good thoughts. Yes. They're healthy thoughts about business and how to build culture and how to healthily understanding that it's not going to be a overnight success. No. It's going to take 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
It's so funny how that happens. I mean, Gary talks about it all the time. Like,
he does.
My overnight success took me 12 years.
Right. And I told him, tell John is completely different from Gary in the sense that John is a faithful believer. Yeah. I always tell John, I said, I'd love to get you and Brad on the same episode to talk about the whole God thing, about the name of Jesus. Yeah. I said, because you can really straighten him out.
Absolutely.
I said, he's had so many people on his podcast that couldn't. I said, dude, I think you're the guy.
Yeah, man.
You'll get Brad Lee to go, okay, I see it now, If anything, to make a friggin' decision. Yeah. Because he's like, I'm seeking. But anyway, I'm digressing. So you have all these different things like, John and my business partner stepping out and doing this thing and embracing it. And I love it, because there is a rising tide, I think, bubbling up right now.
Yeah.
That is going to be contrary to all the bro fraternity stuff that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The people on LinkedIn that have nothing but bootlickers in the comments, and they're not really saying anything. No,
they're not. And
it's like they're looking at you because you take highly polished photos of yourself that should be in a magazine.
Perception. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's the realness? That's not, and they have the audacity to talk about authenticity. It's not authentic, guys.
That's funny. Well, this is how I see it. I think Gary Vee said it really well. There's a case study that I was looking at where, back in Facebook advertising, like 2016, right, where it boomed completely. Yeah. Gary Vee was the one saying, Facebook ads is cheap right now. Everybody should be doing it. Everybody needs to be doing Facebook ads. And then what happened? They listened.
Yeah.
So every single business, and there's agencies left and right that running Facebook ads and promoting that, and they're just making they were making
a
killer, right? And then so this is why I think like marketers kind of ruin everything, right? So like, come on, right?
That is a thing. That's what he says.
Because people actually do it, and they do it. And they flood it. So what happened to Facebook ads?
Yeah, it got overpriced and saturated.
Saturated. I literally can't scroll 2 or 3 posts without seeing an ad.
Right.
So now it's oversaturated. Now it's like
it's radio.
It's
email.
Right. Yeah. So it's noisy. Right. So I think what's happening in this trend that we're starting to see with this bro kind of mentality, it's become like it started and now it's becoming oversaturated. And like these people that are authentic are trying to change their persona to be like, but I'm like, that's not you though.
Right.
But their trend, they're like, well, this is what this guru said, or this person told me that I need to be more in your face or more scroll stopping or more disruptive. And then what's going to happen is that their numbers are going to start die out. We're starting to see those numbers kind of decline. Yeah. And then they're going to be like, well, what do I do next? What do I do? What's next? Right. Yeah. Because it's oversaturated now. It's noisy. So they got to pivot. Yeah. And what happens is, they're pivoting and they're trying to figure out and test new content and all these things. What they're going to realize is like authenticity is key to
it's totally key. And even in the style that it's shot, even in the style that it's being presented, because there's a guy, again, he's got a ton of stripes. He's got the foundation of business. He's successfully ran car dealerships for years. He's starting to put himself out there more, but he's doing it in a very not disjointed, but disconnected, unauthentic, posed, slow-mo walking videos, getting out of the rich car. And then he's got it, you're doing the whole, snapping the jet. I'm like, oh gosh, dude, what was this, a movie trailer for crying out loud? Come on.
And he's sitting there thinking, this is the coolest thing ever, man.
But somebody's telling him this. I'm like, dude, just get in front. Tell me what you believe.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's one of the questions I ask a lot of people on a podcast, whenever I'm doing culture interviews for different companies. What do you believe about what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Just start there.
Yeah.
What do you believe? What do you like John Mediana? What do you see as the problem with personal branding these days?
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
The thing that I'm seeing that is one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is that because we have a lot of examples for personal brands today. So a lot of people that are getting into the space, they want the clout. They want to be, here's the thing, I think that we've convinced ourselves that we want influence, But truly, if we dig deep, we really want to create impact.
Yeah.
And influence becomes the counterfeit to impact. Ooh. And the reason why being is influence happens, you know, you could have influence virtually. I could influence someone to buy something or buy a hat or buy, you know, something. I have influence, you know, and that's why they call them influencers, because, you know, they could sell stuff.
Yeah, the modern day celebrities.
Right. So impact,
hawking products.
Impact is the pure definition of impact is proximity, like creating impact. So if if you shot a rocket into space, if something created impact with that, it's going to change the trajectory of the whole course of the rocket.
They're going to make a decision about their life.
So I think what's the trend that needs to reset is this idea of how do you create impact, not just influence. Right. Influence is a very surface level. It's every entrepreneur, every business owner, like, I need influence. I want to speak on stages. It's like, yeah, but you never built anything.
Right.
I want to speak on stage. I want to share myself. I want to be looked at as this influential, amazing coach. I need the vanity number, so people just start paying for whatever perceived value they think they need, instead of like saying, hey, let's stop doing that and actually do the work. Right. If you do the work, and you'll create impact and not just influence. Influence will be a byproduct of the impact that you make. Right. But the idea here is, I think people chase influence rather than chasing, like, I really want people to win. I want to create an impact. How do I do that? It has to be in proximity. It has to be in community.
And you can't care about your own performance.
That's it.
Because that's the thing. That's my perception a lot. Well, what are your numbers in your podcast? I'm like, look, I'll be real with you. Yeah. About 180 downloads on average per episode. And I always put it out there. I want 10,000, you know, and that's where BHAG. I know it's going to take time. Yeah. It's a very niche focused podcast for the Middle Tennessee business community, even more of a niche. But as I've learned in radio, the more niche you are, the more local you are, you should have a pretty good modicum of success over time.
Well, there's a
local
saying,
markets need to be served.
There's a saying, there's riches in the niches.
Right.
Riches are in the niches.
But I mean, what you're talking about, I call it, I know so many people that, clients of mine. Well, I want to speak. I want to get on stages like you're talking about. All these people, I want to do this. I see these other people making all this money doing this. Right. And I said, Gary Vaynerchuk, again, getting back to Gary, the OG, he didn't set out to be a speaker, guys. Okay? No. He just started sharing what he believed in, what he knows, and it resonated with people. Yeah. I call it build the planet. Yeah. And then hope the planet starts getting a gravitational pull. Okay, what's your planet? Because if you want to be a moon, which, you know, every now and then you get to see, sometimes you see a part of it, sometimes you see the whole thing. It's nice to look at, and it's pretty, and it's getting its light from the sun, which is somewhere else. Be the planet. Okay, the planet will attract the speaking gigs, but you gotta have a belief.
That's right.
What is it that you stand for? Who are you? Yeah. What's your big idea?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Start there.
I think too, like, a lot of these business people that do want to speak more and be on stages more, they just haven't put in the reps when it comes to getting the word out there, like content creation. Right. Right. They're taking a very traditional approach where they're not willing to do the work that it takes to be like sharing their ideas, documenting always. Right. And just sharing and posting and all these things and letting the audience decide. Branding 101 and marketing 101 is supply demand. Yeah. If there's no demand for you to speak, like, who are you to supply that? Right. Like, people just want to be like, I want to be on stage. Right. And I have nothing against that, by the way. Like, you have a story. Everybody has a story. Right. Their story is worth telling. But the idea here is when you chase influence, that becomes the goal of how many stages do I speak on? Right. Instead of the goal being impact, how many lives did I actually change in proximity?
I see so many people, especially on LinkedIn, who talk about, well, I'm speaking on this stage in front of all these people. But I'm like, dude, I have no idea what you're about.
Who are you?
Who are you? What do you do? What do you sell? Yeah. You know, you're talking about building businesses, but is it just you? Is it you and maybe two other people? Because that's not a business, pal.
Yeah, I know, man. I see a lot of solopreneurs, you know, just...
I know. It's like they think they're the freaking greatest gift since God.
Yeah, man. Where I'm just like, what's your business model? Like, when you say we, can you tell me who we is? Right. It's like, oh, it's just me in my office. I'm like, okay.
Right. Like, coaches who are building coaching businesses, coaching other businesses based on the coaching business that they've built. Yeah. You know, it's like, dude, you didn't build a real business. No. All right, you know, being a freaking coach for a girls' basketball team does not give you license to coach businesses. All right. You know who I'm talking about. All right. The funny thing is, it's like, and it's, you're borrowing the ideas from other people and just regurgitating them.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's like you have turnover. Yeah. The guy goes on record talking about, well, my team knows that I'm looking for the next best version of them.
Yeah.
How do you build a culture like that, dude? Come on. When they're freaking in constant fear of losing their job and being replaced.
Yes.
You're not going to build a culture there or a team that way. That's why you have turnover.
That's real.
And I know that for a fact.
I know that for a fact, too. No. If anyone knows that for a fact.
Right.
We know that for a fact.
We know that for a fact.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's building the planet. So if you're somebody out there that's actually looking into the content creation space as you're doing it for executives and everything, I'm sure I'm assuming you come at a pretty decent price tag, which you should. Yeah. Because if you're looking into content creation, I've had a guy that actually years ago, and he thought he was a big deal, showed up with a driver. I'm like, okay, dude, get over yourself. So we go to lunch. He talks for 20 minutes, tells me about his ideas, and he's, flaunting and flexing. And I said, let me stop you right there. I'll sum up exactly what I think you want. Yeah. You want one person to document all these amazing conversations you're having and turn them into like mini documentaries like 5 or 6 times a week, similar to what Vaynerchuk is doing, right? Yeah. That's exactly what I want. I said, okay. Let me guess, you want to pay somebody $50,000 a year to do it? He goes, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, you're looking for a unicorn. Yep. And let me tell you why. Yep. I said, you ever watch Deadliest Catch?
Oh, the one where they're in the Arctic? Or the
not you. I was asking him.
Oh, you were asking? Oh, yeah.
And he goes, yeah. I said, that's just one example. You ever watch Stick Around for the credits at the end? Yeah. I said, you ever count how many people are involved with a production of that size? Yeah. I said, that's what you're asking one person to do. Mm-hmm. I said, so how much money do you really want to put forth to this? I said, I'll tell you right now, a $50,000 a year guy will probably give you a video a week. Yeah. I said, you start him there. I said, you're still going to burn him out though. Yep.
Because you're going to ask him to do. And this is the mission. I feel like me personally, helping these executives not just grow their brand, but have them a healthy understanding,
a realistic expectation of what to pay.
Understanding of the departments it takes, that to create and generate this thing. Is like, well, I could just pay some intern. I could just pay some. So it's like. Oh my gosh, that's going to hurt your brand more than it's going to help your brand. You know what I mean? Because it does take a team.
I told this guy, I said, do you realize how much Vaynerchuk spends on his team just for him?
Yeah.
Not just his clients. I said, he's probably got, I want to say probably at the time he might have had 12 people. Yeah. I said, just do the math on the amount of salary that is. I said, people in New York City that have to make at least 60, 65 grand a year just to get by. Yeah. Young people. Yeah. Do the math on it. Yep. And do all the health insurance and all the taxes that come and all that stuff in New York City. Yeah. He's spending millions a year, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, Alex Hormozi just released that he's spending $3 million on his personal team just to make content.
10 mil?
3
mil.
A year.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Right. And he has a running gun team, but I mean, that's going to increase significantly to 10 million. Right. For sure. But just on him, you know.
But I mean, the ROI, the cost justification of that has to be there.
Oh, absolutely. And he talks about this all the time, where he rather create organic content versus doing paid advertising. I mean, he still does paid advertising, but the organic content is building a massive audience to sell to. Yeah. And his brand is significantly grown massively because it lives online forever.
And people don't understand that organic content does take time.
It does.
When I get podcast, clients who want to do a podcast, I learned a long time ago in the car business, when I was in the car business, set expectations early. Mm-hmm. I said, one of the first things in the first 5-10 minutes of any conversation is that, listen, one thing I will tell you, if you want this thing to have any legs, you're in for a 3 to 5 year grind. Yep. If you're putting out one episode a week, minimum, 3 to 5 years. Yeah. Now, with that being said, you could have a hockey stick moment early, depending on the content, how you come across, how good you are. Right. Do you have charisma? Because at the end of the day, it's all about how entertaining you are.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's it.
It's persona.
It is persona.
And the value that's given, right? So like I have the same conversations. I remember even going back to Alex, he had a conversation with his YouTube team in the very beginning, and he's trying to get on YouTube. And this was just recently too. He's like, so you're telling me, so Alex, you know, you want to do a year-long contract? You want to do 2 years? He's like, put me down for 10.
Yeah.
10 years.
Good for him.
And he's like, and then the YouTube team came back to him and was like, are you serious? Like, we've never had a client to say, put me down for 10 years.
He understands it.
He gets longevity. He gets growth. And of course you want to see return within a couple of years, you know, but you're right. That hockey, the idea, I think the problem that a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs have, and this kind of like myth that needs to be busted when it comes to this space about speaking and personal branding, is that it takes time to build.
Right.
Right. It just takes time. And it's better that you make content today than wait, because you could have been making content, you know, it's going to go a year from now, you know, 2 years, and you're going to regret the fact that you didn't start making content, that you didn't start working with Jim to launch your podcast. Right. You know, like you're going to regret it because you're wasted all that time trying to chase the shiny object of like, oh, what's trending now? I'm going to do this and do this. And, you know, it's like, build the foundation, you know, of content. Like, just make that a standard operating procedure where you just say, we're here, we're going to build content, we're going to document always and share the value and really show people how we serve our clientele and our community and all these things. And everything from there, you're going to learn how to build that muscle of content creation. And it's going to be a lot easier 5 years from now than it is, you know, just going into it today. And your first video is your worst video, by the way.
Which is okay.
Which is totally fine. It's natural.
I go back to listen to my first voiceover demos, and they're god awful.
They're terrible.
I had a 10-minute production demo to help. I thought it would get me jobs in radio.
Oh man,
10 minutes.
The attention span on that. I mean, the attention span is different back then than it is today.
It is.
Right.
I mean, you're also dealing with a different generation back
That's
then.
true. Yeah.
Program directors and radio stations were my age at that point, so it was. I had this whole like, hey, welcome to the Jim McCarthy production experience, with me walking down a hallway with reverb effects and water drip.
So you were
weird.
You were the movie a slow-mo guy in the very beginning.
In a way,
but we learned though.
Cringy.
How long did it take you to experience like, you know what, I actually got to deliver the content faster, and I got to start, you know, because that's the attention span. But this is what people
the phone didn't ring.
Right.
And I just started making, let me just make an amalgamation, compilations of all the different imaging pieces I've made for the radio station. Here's my commercial. Here's my imaging demo. Yeah. There's 60 seconds. Boom, 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 boom. And then I started getting interest. That's when Vegas came calling.
Yes.
So, yeah. But exciting, you know, man. Literally every night, because I had a night shift at the radio station. Yeah. Putting a cassette tape in and then hitting the space bar, going for 10 minutes, doing my shift, preparing for the next break, and I would have folders and resumes and cassette decks and tapes laid out, and I just start packaging them up. Yeah, and look in the trade papers all the time for who to send them to. Yeah, never got a hit back. Oh yeah, they were like, yeah, screw this guy. Way too long, buddy.
Yeah, it's like get to the desired outcome. So I think like this, you know, Simon Sinek did this thing called Start With Why. But for me, I'm like, if you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, no one cares about your why yet. Right. Start with how are you going to help them? Right. Start with that, because people want to know, what can you do for me? And that's just how we're wired. Yeah. You know, what can you do for me? Like, what is your unique value position in the market that makes you different than any other media agency or agency that's in my DMs, by the way, every single day telling me I could get you more leads. I'm
yeah. They're always funny.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a podcast producer. We can produce your podcast. I'm like, okay, you really not done your homework.
Clearly.
You know how many people I get hit up with the mostly Middle Tennessee business podcast? Yeah. Hey, I got a good guy for you that's really great, and he'd be a great fit for your podcast. Terrific. What's his name? It's so-and-so. Great. Where does he live in Nashville? Oh, he's out of Monterey. Oh, okay. When's he going to be in Nashville?
Never.
Oh, well, he's, he can do virtual Zoom. Oh, you've obviously not listened or watched my podcast, have you?
Yeah.
They not interested. See ya.
Yeah. I think that's one of the other things. I think the myths that we got to bust is the idea that, you know, you should automate when automation's key, but really relationship first. Yeah. Right. Because you can't manufacture a relationship. You know what I mean? Like, the whole thing of like sending 1,000 emails out and all those things and DMing, like
you get some that stick.
There's some of them stick, but a lot of it's just really impersonal, and sometimes it just hurts the brand because you're like, oh, is this a robot? And how many times, like I've sent DMs literally calling these people out because I'm just like, it's a stick, you know. Yeah. It's like a copy paste like approach to start.
It's templated.
It's templated where I'm just like one guy templated it in my DMs, you know, like, hey, I do this. And I'm like, don't you want to be on TEDx? I'm like, hey, bro, you want to get married fast and in a hurry. I don't even know you.
Yeah.
And like, you're just jumping into this. You're like being really aggressive. Like, how about you take me out for a drink first, you know?
I call those guys Val Packers.
Val Packers?
Yeah. You ever get a Val Pack in the mail?
Oh yeah, I was like, "What is that?" Yeah, Valpacks.
Yeah, Valpacks. Very, surface level transactional approaches to get introduced to businesses. They even pay for prime placement of their coupons to be in a certain portion of the envelope.
Yeah. There's this thing. Back in the day, I was really big in marketing direct mail.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it still works, but
it does.
What you're doing now is segmenting a specific audience.
Right.
So if you're really direct, and I guess it just depends on your business model,
right?
And your outcomes. And that's the conversation that people need to have is like, well, what's your desired outcomes? If you want to go more direct and like just surely crush numbers and then get like a small percentage conversion rate, like between 2 to 3%, then yeah, direct mailing is perfect for your business model. But if it's a more personal touch, if it's more like a service or, it's kind of like the wrong approach to do it because you're not, you need like a type of audience that's more elevated or understanding the value that you present or bring to the table.
That's B&I, buddy. Yeah. I mean, that's all about relationships. Yeah. They talk about it's more about farming than hunting, And that's exactly what I kind of learned from that. But yeah, there's a lot of, the good thing is that if you choose to be authentic in your approach, just speak about, oh my gosh, here's a whole nother topic. Speak about what you freaking know.
Don't say it again for the people in the back.
Don't pretend to freaking, be something.
Share what you know.
That you can't, I've seen, hey, let me show you how to dominate Instagram. This is where you got to put content up. You got to be a cause conversations. And it's like zip for freaking comments. And it's like, I'm guilty, guy. I'm guilty, but I know I'm self-aware. I know I don't get much engagement on my stuff. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know to do that.
You're not selling that.
No.
What your expertise is podcasting.
Voiceover.
I know that, right? Yeah. So like that's a great myth number 3 that needs to be busted is talk about what you know.
Yeah, because you will be found out.
Quick and in a hurry.
People will know.
Quick and in a hurry.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on that.
Oh man, I love sharing these.
It drives me up a wall.
I love sharing these war stories with you.
It's fun to hear from somebody who is you have a lot of stuff going on for you.
Yeah,
a lot of really cool stuff, but you also have a humility about you, which is, I think, part of your superpower.
Oh, thanks, man.
So, how can people find and follow you?
Yeah, just go ahead and follow if you want to follow me on Instagram or anywhere online. It's John Mediana. That's Mediana. Media is in my name. I feel like I was born to do this stuff like media. Right. So if you want to check out what we do at Executive Brand Growth, just go to executivebrandgrowth.com and come hang out, man.
Right. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you being on. And of course, I appreciate you guys tuning in, listening. This has been an amazing episode. If you've enjoyed it, share it out. Tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it, all that fun stuff. Send them to MMTBP.com for Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Rate, review, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And, even though we talked about, our impetus isn't trying to get as many downloads as possible. We want to share good content. But, of course, we also want, some exposure. So we put it out there. We say 10,000 average downloads over an annualized basis. May take us a couple of years, but I believe strongly enough in this thing that it could happen. So there you go. John, thanks for coming out, pal.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for having me on your show.